Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us on a special edition of Nap Time News. I'm very excited to share with you what we have in store for today. Not totally shocking, because I know I kind of already told you these grants were coming, but the purpose of today's segment is to walk through the application because our goal is to get you guys these dollars and these resources just as quickly as we possibly can. And to do that, we need complete and correct applications. So the smoother we can make this for the application process, the faster we're able to get you guys the dollars. So without further ado, I am going to walk us through what is happening. And let me just see if I can see the Facebook page. Yeah, I don't know how to see it. Okay. Well, maybe I can. No, maybe. Yeah, I give up. Sorry, guys. I was trying to multitask so I could see it on Facebook at the same time as I was doing it on the Zoom, so I could see your comments, but I can't. So I have my own technical limitations. But without further ado, all right, let me get to the right screen. Whoop, that went way faster than I expected. So I shared with you guys previously the amounts. You guys should have received an email. If not, you will be receiving an email very shortly that gives you the link to your application, along with the grant award that you will be eligible for. So I'm not going to read through all of these, but as you can see, they range from $5,000 all the way up to $45,000. So these are significant grants at every level. And of course, the grants are outlined, or they're tiered based upon licensed capacity. So this shouldn't come as a surprise. I know you guys have seen this kind of thing before, except that these are much bigger grants than what we had previously. It's also broken up and shows those workforce initiatives, which we'll talk about as well. All right. See, look at that segue. Workforce initiatives. The grant is split into two parts. There's the base grant, and then there are workforce initiatives. And what this is saying is that you promise you're going to use a portion, that portion at least, to support workforce initiatives. This could be training, recruitment bonuses, salary supplements, anything that helps to retain you or your staff, or upskills them, or recruit. So maybe you're paying, of course, background screenings and onboard training, the clock hour training. Maybe you are doing a sign-on bonus. Maybe you've got teachers who have been sticking with it and remaining and continuing to show up, and you want to throw them a little extra love that way. Then we can do that. You can do that too. So you decide. You're the business owner. You decide. All you're saying is, we're going to use this to help enhance our workforce. All right, so let's see. And these dollar amounts, by the way, that are in this part, these are just samples that you guys can decide how you want to do it. And if you're a family child care home, you know what? You're advancing your own education as well. You're doing your own training. You're continuing to serve as a family child care home provider. So retain yourself, right? Everybody apply for this part. All right, the application. I hope you guys have received it and can pull it up so you can kind of follow along, but I am going to walk you through each process of the application. What is this? All right, so first, complete section 1. You know your provider type. You've got your funding sources that apply. There's a few different funding sources that are listed here. And let me pull it up so I can see it too. There's a few different funding sources listed. Head Start, Title I, Early Head Start. Chances are there's a handful of providers who are contracted to provide community-based Head Start services. I don't believe we have any doing migrant Head Start. So you just ignore anything that doesn't apply to you. You're not getting campus funding. Just ignore that. Either your VPK, school readiness, or none of the above. You don't have to be contracted in order to receive these grants. The number of children you're licensed for should match your DCF or your Pinellas County Licensing Board license. So if you're licensed for 100 kids, but you keep your capacity set at 80, but you're licensed for 100, whatever your licensed number is what should match what's on the grant there. Then when you put in the number of children that are enrolled, you're going to include every kid that's enrolled, not just school readiness or VPK. Just include the entire enrollment. That's what they're looking for that section. And I don't know. Aha, there's this. All right, let me see if there's any questions popping up. All right, so next step, and you'll see I have actually taken snippets out of the application so you can see exactly what it needs to say. If you are, this goes to all providers, whether you're contracted or not, you have to be operational on September 1st, unless you are unable to based on local ordinance or restriction. Let me break that down. If you were forced to close to quarantine that day, coincidentally, because you had a COVID case or something to that effect, mark yes. Yes, you were operational because you were operational, but you were closed as required by epidemiology. If you have been closed for 10 months and you haven't reopened, you're not, then, and you're closed on September 1st, then you would mark no and you wouldn't qualify for the grant. But I think everybody who we're going to be talking to here would mark yes, because you were open, even if you had a temporary closure due to a quarantine. Okay. The second part, okay, so if you happen to be a Head Start provider, you can't receive Head Start and these other dollars. So that's the only situation where you would run into that. If you have that, contact us, we'll help you work through it. But for the rest of you, it should be a no in most cases. All right, so this next part here comes into these assurances. A child care provider cannot be under investigation or convicted for child care fraud. So if you, for example, have had a contract terminated due to fraud, you will not be eligible. The provider cannot be on the USDA disqualified list. If you're on the USDA qualified list, I can assure you that you know. So as long, and if you're on that list, you're not contracting with us, you know that you're on that list. So if you're not on that list, you're going to mark no. You can't have a contract terminated by the Early Learning Coalition in the last 5 years. And this grant or this application and these grant requirements, I don't think they're anything new based on the previous grants, but these are set by the state. If we have the Early Learning Coalition has terminated your contract within the last 5 years, whether it was for school readiness or VPK, then you would not be eligible for these grants. You can't have any class 1 violations since July 1 of 2019. If you are a multi-site program and one site had a class 1 fine, you would still be eligible at your other sites. It's just that one site that you would be ineligible to receive the grants. And then finally, everybody has to have a W-9 and direct deposit on file. All right. So for my contracted providers, you already have done this. So you guys can just take a minute to open up your contract if you haven't already and start filling it out. But for my non-contracted friends, here's the scoop. 1, you have to have your CCR&R update done. Typically in the spring, we contact you to complete those. We try to get everybody included in our database. Now, in order to receive the grant, you must complete that update. Most of you have probably already done that because you did it in order to receive the earlier phases of the CARES grants. So you probably already have it done. But in order to qualify for this grant, you must be able to mark yes on that box. For the other areas, if you're under investigation for fraud, it has to be a no. Are you on the Florida USDA federal disqualified list, the USDA disqualified list? That has to be a no in order to qualify. You've got to have a no in terms of the contract termination, and you have to have a no in terms of those class 1 violations. The last question for our non-contracted providers about the W-9 is, If you previously received CARES grants from us, we have your W-9 and direct deposit form on file. You don't have to resubmit it. Just tell us the month and year of when you did it and mark yes. If you have not previously applied for grants through us, through the CARES dollars, then you would mark no. And on the email that you received with your application is the W-9 and direct deposit form. And when you submit your application, you'll just include those as well. I don't see any, well, let me make sure. Don't see any questions popping up so far. All right, expenditure certification. This again is part of the statewide application. And basically you're agreeing that you're going to use a portion of these funds for salaries and benefits. I can't imagine a scenario where you wouldn't use these for salaries and benefits. You have to agree that you're not going to use this for food. We are unable to use any of the state dollars or federal dollars for food. It's a prohibited expense. So if you have an event where you need to purchase food, use your tuition, use other dollars, but these dollars cannot be used for food. So when it comes to that part of the application, you're definitely going to agree that you can't use these dollars for food. And then finally, remember those workforce dollars. Those are extra dollars on top of the base grant that you are getting to enhance your workforce. And you have to agree that you're going to use those additional dollars to support the recruitment, retention, or upskilling of your workforce, whether it's training, whether it's added coaching time, maybe you're paying for substitutes, whatever it is. I know substitutes, that's probably a horrible example because you can't find them, but whatever it is you're doing to recruit, onboard, upskill, retain, keep them showing up and stepping up, that's what you're doing with those dollars. If you mark no on that box, then you don't get those monies. So that would be a yes. All right. And you don't, when it comes to the, let me back up. When it comes to those workforce dollars, you're not submitting a specific plan to us for approval. You're just attesting that you are doing that. And we hope to see those dollars will flow to the teachers, but I know every scenario is a little different depending on your circumstances. All right, sign and submit. This is different than the previous phases. The signing instructions is a little bit different. So I'm going to walk you through it, but I just want to make sure if you've done the previous phase grants, which most of you have, and this sounds different, it's because it's different. So you need to sign and date your application, obviously. The application is done in Adobe. And so when you go in, you can fill out the form. And then when it gets to the signature spot, you'll see a little red tag for you to sign. Now you're only signing where it says provider. You only sign it one time. And when you click on that, it will likely pop up and tell you to put your password in and you sign it electronically. We have instructions in here, which I won't actually read. If you don't have the right Adobe version and you're unable to sign it electronically, fear not. Print it, sign it by hand, and scan it and return it to us via email. You are going to email your application, whichever way you sign it, you're going to email your completed application back to the person who sent it to you in the first place. So we have several staff. We're processing 700 of these to put some perspective on this. So we have a small but mighty team of staff who will be processing all 700 applications. They have split them into groups so that they can provide that concierge grant support service to you. So when you get your application from them, from an individual, it won't come through Constant Contact, from your individual, then when it's time to submit it, you're going to reply to them and send them as an attachment. And remember, if you're a non-contracted provider and this is your first grant, you're also going to attach that W-9 and direct deposit form. But you'll do that through email because we're doing this whole process electronically so that we can make things move faster. All right. When you get to section 4, where it says for ELC use only, you don't need to fill out anything, nothing. Don't try to pre-fill anything for us. We'll handle it. You could just ignore that section altogether. We'll handle it. And then once it's approved, you'll get the word that, hey, you're getting a huge grant. All right, so the big question I know will be, how long is it going to be before I get my money? So when you complete your grant application and you've signed it and it's all correct, and you have sent it to us via email, we will be processing those applications just as quickly as we can. The first batch of applications that we will get, of course, is going to be the biggest, because naturally people want to apply right away. They don't want to wait and drag it out. They want to get their money as fast as they can. So you will submit your application. We will process it. If there is an issue in your application, let's think about what those issues could be. If you mark yes, you had a class 1 fine, then we're going to have to kick it back. If you mark no, that you had a class 1 fine, but you did have a class 1 fine, we're going to have to reject that application. So we have to review every single application to make sure that everything is correct. That's why it's so important that you make sure your licensed capacity matches and that everything is accurate on the application, because we have to validate all of it. And we don't want to have to go back and forth with you, because that will delay you getting the resources that we know you desperately need. So we'll review that. We'll reject anything. I hate that term, but we will kick back anything that doesn't qualify. And if you submit and you ultimately don't qualify, then there's nothing we can do about that. But we'll work with you if there's any question. Once we approve it, then we queue it up for payment on our end. Payment is done through the electronic funds transfer. This is nothing new to any of you, I'm quite certain. That's how we do it. So in terms of the timing, what we're looking at is that we want to do the first batch. Let's get those applications in by November 24th. If you guys can get the applications in before Thanksgiving, we will work around the clock after the holiday to get those processed so that you're paid the week of December 6th. We want to make sure that you guys get paid with enough time in case you're doing anything near the holidays, that you have access to the dollars. If you submit your application after November 24th, of course, we're still going to honor it. We're still going to do it, but it will take about 15 days for us to get those processed, depending on the release of dollars. And on that note, I will tell you, our goal is to get you paid during the week of December 6th, hopefully at the early part of that week. The contingency there is, we're talking about $10 million. We have to have those funds from the state before we can release them to you, because we don't keep that kind of money on reserves. And so if there's a delay with funds coming from the state, that could hang things up. But our commitment is to get everything done on our end so that we're ready to go. And I believe we should be in pretty good shape. We're working with them, but I just wanted to throw that caveat out there. So get your applications in by November 24th, and we will move the mountains to get you paid during the week of December 6th so that you can do that. And let's see. All right, so questions. I'm going to get to the questions now. I see a couple popping up here. So let me come back to this. All right, the application, you should have received an email. If you did not receive your application, or let me say this, if you don't receive your application by today at 3 o'clock, then send a message to grants@elcpinellas.org. But I believe that they are physically sent, because they're sending them out individually. I believe they are literally physically sending them out probably as we speak. So give them just a minute. But if by the end of the day, if you don't get the application, certainly reach out to us and we will work with you on that. All right. Let's see. The money for salaries, Lindsay, you're asking, it sounds like the suggested uses for workforce dollars are leaning toward bonuses or one-time payouts. That is not a direct recommendation. Those are just some examples. If you have the opportunity to invest the dollars into wage increases, I would tell you that would be highly encouraged. If you're prepared to do that, sustain that, that would be the ideal situation. I think some of the recommendations on some of the one-time expenses is for concerns around that. But frankly, we know, we see what's happening Y'all, I know I've probably used this example already, but Aldi is paying $17 an hour and they don't even bag their groceries for you. Anything you can do to support wages and wage increases among your team is going to help to solidify your team. So if you want to take these dollars and spread them out over a longer period of time, you do not have a cutoff as to when you use these dollars, which I think is one of the upcoming questions. You can spread it out. If you take this and say, this is going to support wage increases for me over the next X amount of time, that is absolutely your decision as a business owner and as a leader to do that. So don't feel like you have to only do it one way or the other. And keep in mind too, that the Early Learning Coalition is continuing our work, and we received a separate grant that we're working on developing for workforce supports as well. So some of the things that we're already doing with background screenings and training costs, we will continue to be doing as well. So you have a lot of options in how you use these dollars, and that is up to you on the best way to use it. You guys know how you need to run your business. The monies do not have to be spent, Judy, within this fiscal year. Judy Miller Bruckner, my friend, your W-9, you already, I believe you're contracted, you already have it on file, nothing to do, don't send anything, you're good to go, assuming you have it on file. This can't possibly be the first time you're applying for one of these grants, Judy, so I'm pretty confident you have it on file. Let's see. So if you're not able to sign electronically, complete the app, you should be able to fill in the fields to complete the application, and then hit the print button on your computer, sign it, date it, and scan it. I know you guys can scan because we get everything through the portal. Scan it and email it to the person who sent it to you, and we'll handle it from there. No stress. Sometimes the signature requires you to have Adobe Pro, which is a software. Nobody needs to buy Adobe Pro. Don't panic. Nobody has to buy any special software or anything else. Backup plan is you just print it and do it. And again, remember, this is different than the way it was done for phase 5. So if it feels different, it's because it is, but don't worry, we'll get it going. Okay, Lindsay, going back to question stems from the last, let me just do some more grants coming. Yes, Lindsay, you are 100% correct. There are more grants coming. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, except that it will be more than this, more money than this. So the ARPA dollars, I can't remember what all the acronyms stand for, but ARPA dollars, what we know so far is 1.5 billion with a B, with $1.5 billion will be coming to Florida purely to support grants to providers. That's it. That's all they're for. There's other funds, another $1 billion of funds that will come down to the Department of Education and filter, at least in part, to the Early Learning Coalitions. But there is a total of $1.5 billion that will be coming down. Theoretically, you will start to see these dollars flow probably between January and March of 2022, so the next quarter. And from what I can gather, it sounds like those payments of those grants will be split over 6 quarters. So you've got, quite a bit of time to stabilize things in the meantime. So there is additional grant dollars that will for certain be coming. I just don't know exactly what those dollar amounts will be, but they are substantial grants. So I believe you would be able to likely sustain increases that you're doing for your staff, and certainly would encourage that if you can. Okay, Denise, ways in which the monies can be used. You don't have any employees, it's just you. Well then, Denise, I would say you are your most important employee. And over the last couple of years, you have probably been faced with many challenges, including the question, can I continue to do this? Should I continue to do this? Do I want to continue to do this? And each day you woke up and you said, yes, I would like to continue to do this. And tomorrow you're probably going to wake up and say, I still want to continue to do this. But sometimes it's helpful to get a bonus as an encouragement to say, why, yes, I absolutely want to continue to do this. I'm going to make a commitment to myself that I'm going to continue to operate for another year. And as an incentive to yourself, you might take some workforce incentive grants because you are your employee. So you can do that. You might also choose to take those dollars and say, hey, I'm going to go to the Family Child Care Home Conference this summer and invest them in your education. Or you may sign up for some other type of training or resource that would support your advancement as a provider. So you have some flexibility there. And, just because you're an employee, you only have one employee and that is you, doesn't make the work that you do any less important and doesn't mean that you are not equally valuable to our early learning workforce as a whole. So mark yes. Let's see. Yvonne, I'm not 100% sure which grant you're talking about. I'm thinking, are you talking about the infant capacity grants? I've got to wait for these questions to filter through to me, but my guess is you might be talking about the infant grants. So on that note, while you're answering, I'll take the liberty of answering a question that you may or may not be asking, but around infant capacity. As I mentioned, the Early Learning Coalition, we're getting a separate grant that we will have to use realistically between January and June 30th because it takes a while to gear things up. But it is intended to support the rebuilding and strengthening of our early learning workforce, access to quality, and sufficient capacity for early learning programs. So we are looking at different opportunities and strategies that we could use to help increase capacity of high quality care. And we know that there is a shortage of infant toddler care. I'm certain I'm not telling you guys something you don't already know. So there are some opportunities where we could look to use some of those dollars to provide capacity building grants that could be used, say, for a regular family child care home provider to become a large family child care home and maybe specialize in infants and toddlers, kind of like a boutique style, where you really cater to that younger population and help us to build capacity there. We could look at grants there. So these are some brainstorms. I don't want to make a firm commitment on anything right now because we've got to brainstorm. We've been asking for feedback from providers, brainstorm among the staff, and then ultimately have to get things approved from the Department of Education. But these are some ideas that are floating. Another option, which we have done in the past, is look at our center providers. And, many have reported that their 4-year-old classrooms are low, or some of their older enrollments are lower, and starting to look at what would it take to convert those to infant and toddler classrooms. And let me just preface that by saying I am well aware of the economics there and the economy of scale you get in a 4-year-old classroom. I know that it is quite different than the revenues brought in an infant and toddler classroom, but certainly there's an opportunity for us to discuss what that would take, what that could look like, where we could, work together on finding some solutions there. But that would be an area, or if you have an empty room, and have space to put some babies, and maybe you just need the cribs, the outfitting, that kind of thing. There are some grant opportunities we can do there. I will share with you at a much larger scale, or at a 20,000 foot view. I am continuing to look at the cost of care. I think Judy sent me some information. I've been also working with the Children's Services Councils and others on what is the actual cost of care by age category, knowing that there will need to be some reckoning in terms of the rates in order for us to be able to continue to have sufficient capacity for some age categories based on the low ratios. So I don't know what we're going to do just yet, how we're going to do anything just yet, but I do know it's an issue and we are studying it. So I know even if we provide a grant for materials, supplies, equipment, kickoff, there's a sustainability factor there when it comes to that younger care. So Denise, your question about the, Yvonne, I'm glad I got your question correct. The need for new fence, bathrooms, let's see. So there's a portion of your grant that is specifically for workforce initiatives, and I'll scroll back to that screen so you can see. There's a portion of your grant that is specifically an allocation for workforce initiatives. You couldn't use that amount. So if you're getting a total of $5,156, if you're a regular family child care home, for example, 800 of that must be used for workforce. So you couldn't use the entire amount for new fence or playground equipment. However, the base grant, you could use a portion of that for it. Some of your money, remember that first assurance that you said was that you were going to use a portion of your monies for salary. But you have some flexibility with how you manage that. But you could use it to do other things in your program to support the quality of the services you provide. That's about it. I'll pause for a minute and see if there's any additional questions that come in. I know that this application process is pretty simple. That was by design. We advocated heavily to simplify it. We just kind of wanted to walk through it with you. Our hope, what I would love to see happen is that in the next couple of days, everybody watches this informative video and completes their application, emails it to the appropriate staff member, and we can start processing these applications and getting them queued up for payment. You guys would be absolutely shocked. There are some providers who just don't participate for some reason, or don't apply right away. And I gotta be honest, if somebody said, hey, if you fill out this paper, we can send you $20,000, that would become a priority next to, of course, taking care of the precious children. But that would quickly become a priority. So if you are talking to folks who say, I don't want that grant, and why do they keep calling me? Because we make several attempts to call providers. You can't believe how hard we've worked to try to give away money for these things. And we don't really have like an unsubscribe from the grants, but any help you can give us to let the word out to these providers. Like, there's just some who don't apply. And I don't know if they think it's like, some kind of scam or something when they get it in their email, but we call, we do all this. But, like I'm told all the time that like, I want a cruise or something. And if you could just help us to spread the word that these are legit, this is real money, this is their tax money, frankly, that's being used to support their businesses. And we really want to bring those resources to our community and help benefit their businesses as well. We certainly would appreciate that. Melissa, I see your question. If you have a contract with the Early Learning Coalition, you qualify. So unless your contract was terminated due to that Class 1 violation, then you would still qualify for the grant. Lindsay, that's a really good question. We will not be auditing your expenses, but I'm glad you brought that up. So you're not, whereas some grants, for example, the car alarm grant for those that are working through that with the transportation safety, we will be collecting receipts. On this grant, we are not collecting receipts. Now, of course, you're attesting to this. As an individual, as a business owner, you're attesting that you're going to use the funds appropriately in accordance with the grant guidelines that I've shared with you today. However, we are not collecting receipts or auditing expenses. That being said, I know whether you're working on enhancing teacher salaries or doing, bonuses or rebuilding your playground or making huge investments in the quality of your program, that many providers are going to get creative and do really awesome things. And you know what I would love is to hear those stories. Whether you share it with us on social media, send us an email, being able to share those success stories, let our friends up at the Department of Education know and our elected officials know what great things you guys were able to do with these investments. is always great. Number one, it's just after a really rough couple of years, it's just so exciting, for us, for our staff who are working so hard to make these things happen, to know just how it benefited our providers and of course the children that you serve. But it also makes for a really nice collective thank you card to those in power who make these things available to us. So to the extent that you guys can, I know you have a lot on your plate, but it sure would be awesome to share some of those success stories that we can pass on to those folks up in Tallahassee or even at the federal level to show what an impact it's had. Because I think these additional grants that are being offered, especially knowing that there's more to come, have the ability to really rewrite the story of early learning in a really positive way and bring a lot of strength to the profession that you're in. And so the more we can spread that positive message, I think it just builds public will. And it's just really exciting to hear too. Let's see. Deneen, yes, the applications have been sent out for the auto alarms. Those are the transportation alarms. They've been sent out. We pulled a list of the providers who, based on their CCR&R profile, that are required to have the grant would need it. Now, if there's a glitch in your CCR&R profile, we'll certainly work with you. But to be very clear, the rule for the transportation alarm grants applies to childcare centers and large family childcare homes. It does not include regular family childcare homes. So we're offering grants to centers and large homes for the purchase of alarms, and they have to be on the DCF approved list. And you must have your transportation rider on your certificate of insurance. There are some criteria that you have to meet on that, which you're required to do that anyway if you're transporting children, but we will have to double check that. I will share with you, I've heard from a couple home providers, there is some concern over the installation costs. When we were preparing for this grant, we did extensive research on the cost of the alarms and the installation, and contacted all these different like stereo shops and all this to get it figured out. And it sounds like in the process, at some point, the prices got a little, they got increased, let's put it that way. So we're working through that now. I want you guys to know the backstory was that it was actually really thoroughly researched, and the grant amounts were very appropriate based upon whether it was a car or a large bus or van being different, but we'll take a look at that and see what we can do on that front if it becomes an issue for you. So we're trying, but it wasn't an arbitrary number that was picked in the first place. But you know how these things go, and there is a deadline coming. So it sounds like there may have been some adjustment in the pricing locally. Okay. Anything else, my friends? Does anybody come up with any brilliant things that the Early Learning Coalition can do to support you along the way? Especially with those grants that we have coming. Anyone? Okay. I'm going to give it just another hot second, see if anything else comes up. But that's the gist. Our hope is to make this grant application process like smoother than the Swanee River and make it easy for you so that you guys can keep doing the work you're doing, and our staff can also do their day job, because this is an added exciting bonus that they're doing to process these for you guys. So kudos to them. All right. It looks like we don't have any other questions. So with that, I know this was a pop-in special edition of the Nap Time News, and I appreciate your patience. I missed you guys on Friday, but I'm glad that you should have the applications now, or will be momentarily. And if you have any questions, certainly I would say start by contacting the person who's contacted you. So if Tamara reaches out to you, follow up with Tamara. If you have any other issues or you haven't heard from anybody, use that grants@elcpinellas.org, and we'll make sure you get taken care of. And if you have friends who have not had the opportunity to join us today, we will be posting the video link both on Facebook, of course, it will be on, and we will also be posting the Zoom link on our website. So they'll be able to watch the encore and get this going. So get those applications in as soon as you can, like sooner the better, would really help so we have time to process and get it going. With that, I'll tell you, have a great day. Thanks for what you guys do, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Bye, everybody.